The FIFA World Cup is one of the biggest spectacles in sport. 48 teams, 104 matches, one winner. Or maybe two. Sure, one team will lift the iconic trophy, but with an estimated $11 billion in revenue coming in, FIFA might be the real winner before a single ball is kicked.
It's the biggest event ever. It's more than 4 billion viewers all around the world, and we will make it the biggest, not only sports event, but the biggest social event that we can think of.
Johnny, we're going to have to extend my second term because 2026, I'm going to have to extend it for a couple of years. I don't think any of you would have a problem with that, but I hope you're going to remember me in 2026.
For sure.
Since the World Cup was awarded to the U.S., Canada, and Mexico during President Trump's first term, 16 host cities have been ramping up infrastructure spending to prepare for the tournament.
I think as a host city, we know this is a big investment.
Sharon Ballenbach is the executive director of the FIFA World Cup 2026 Toronto Secretariat.
Our budget here in Toronto is $380 million, and that has been approved by Council. It is, in terms of funding partners, we have significant funding partners from our federal government, as well as our provincial government, and then, of course, the City of Toronto. So it's really all three levels of government are contributing. And the City of Toronto's portion is around $180 million. And much of that comes from so that we can reduce the burden on sort of the tax base. Much of that portion that the city is contributing to the event is coming from some reserve funds. We're putting in place a municipal accommodation tax as a source of revenue for a temporary period over the course leading into the tournament and for the couple of months after. As well, we have a big commercial revenue strategy around bringing in host city supporters and other hospitality sales and opportunities for corporate and other businesses and so on in the city.
Toronto's upgrades include better public transit and the development of training centers, but a sizable portion of the budget is going towards upgrading BMO Field, where Nick Eves is the chief operating officer.
FIFA minimum requirement is to get the stadium up to a 45,500 capacity. Today, the stadium holds about 30,000. So we'll be building a temporary 10,000 on the north end, another 7,000 on the south end. The north end structure, in addition to that temporary seating, will also have a permanent 2 levels of hospitality suites, which of course will be usable for the World Cup matches. All of that work must be complete by March in order for us to then go and host some test matches here to really sort of dry run and experience some of this new infrastructure that's been put into place. So on the first phase of construction, we're on schedule. We will be on schedule for the second phase because ultimately we have to hit that March date to host the test matches. And then we need to hand the stadium over to FIFA 30 days from the opening match.
As it turns out, FIFA requires a lot from hosts beyond just stadium capacity. In a published list of government guarantees, FIFA lists the, quote, significant mid- and long-term socioeconomic benefits for host countries, using that to justify a list of requirements that include tax exemptions for the tournament and support in security, public transport, and infrastructure. And it also takes over external advertising spaces. So Toronto's BMO Field becomes Toronto Stadium, and MetLife Stadium becomes New York, New Jersey Stadium.
It's the biggest, broadest, most diverse, kind of far-reaching World Cup there has ever been. And so with that has come a lot of learnings. And I think FIFA have learned a lot, quite frankly, as well, about working with 3 countries, working with 16 host cities. So there's been some things and elements of the agreement and of the requirements that have been laid out from day one. There's been some elements that have shifted, and that's been open dialogue and open communication and an understanding of what are some of the realities that are happening in Toronto that might be different than the realities happening in Vancouver or happening in Los Angeles or happening in New York or Dallas. So there's been some shifts and some ability for us to work together with FIFA to determine what some of those things are. But FIFA definitely, this is their tournament. This is their tournament. They own the property, as it were. And so they will come in, I think it's early May, and sort of take over the stadium. They will manage their portions of this tournament and work with us. They understand our budget. They know what our budget is. We've had to push back on some things. There's been some good dialogue on some of the items where we just don't have the budget to maybe meet some of the requirements that have been in place. And so that's been a bit of give and take. What are the primary things that we want to make sure are in place, and what are those things that maybe we can adjust and change a little bit? So that's, again, been an open dialogue. FIFA, I have to say, have been great partners. We've had the ability to really discuss openly some of the elements, understanding it's their tournament, and they've run it for many, many years, as we all know.
And FIFA certainly knows how to make money off of it. The $11 billion in revenue it expects to receive will come largely from broadcast deals, ticket packages, and sponsorships. Andrew Zimbalist is a professor of economics at Smith College and author of Circus Maximus, the economic gamble behind hosting the World Cup and Olympics. There's a good deal of revenue that doesn't come back to the cities who are sponsoring these things. Particularly, it goes to FIFA. What happens to the money to FIFA? Where does that money go?
Well, it goes to making sure that Gianni Infantino has a very comfortable and luxurious life, for one, and his various deputies. But more importantly, the vast majority of the money goes to soccer federations around the world. So each of the participants in FIFA, the International Soccer Association, each of the country participants has a national soccer association, and they're in charge of developing soccer in their country. They spend money for youth soccer programs. They spend money for facilities. They spend money to train referees and officials and so on. So most of the money, the overwhelming majority, probably 90% of the money that is generated for FIFA gets reinvested back into the soccer development worldwide.
So where do the host cities see a return? They get none of FIFA's windfall, but expect to make money through revenue streams like increased tourism, job creation, and global exposure. For Toronto, that's expected to result in $686 million of positive economic output for the greater area, according to a report from Deloitte and FIFA. Adam Van Koeverden is Canada's Secretary of State for Sport and a former Olympic champion in kayaking.
It is a big upfront investment, but we know that it's going to pay off. For example, the federal government is investing $220 million between Toronto and Vancouver to ensure that these 13 games are world-class, safe, and really, really exciting for Canadians. The provincial governments are also coming forward with hundreds of millions of dollars, and the cities are also investing, as are private companies, and FIFA especially. So it's an exercise in collaboration, like I said, but the result is a massive positive economic output that Canadians, Canada, Canadian businesses, everybody will see the benefit from that. Likely, we're going to see about $2 billion increase to our GDP, as well as about $3.8 billion, upwards of $4 billion in positive economic output. We're talking about almost 25,000 jobs to be attributed to the FIFA World Cup in 2026. So the economics are very, very sound. It looks like it's going to be a huge boon for Canada's economy, but I'm sure the same is true in the United States and in Mexico as well.
Yet not everyone is convinced.
So you put the costs and the revenues together, and you can get a variety of different outcomes, but more likely than not, there's not a financial benefit for the host city. Although virtually every one of the 16 cities in North America will have an increased flow of tourism into the city, virtually every one, I suspect. Very often, the soccer tourists, the soccer fans, replace the normal fans. So somebody who might otherwise be thinking about a trip to Vancouver, Canada, to watch some of the World Cup games might decide, gee, as nice as Vancouver is, and it is a great city, as nice as it is, I'm not going to go there when the World Cup is happening because I'm not going to be able to get a ticket to the game, or I don't want to spend $500 to get a ticket to the game. And so why would I want to put up with the congestion and the higher hotel prices? And so what happens is the soccer tourists substitute for the normal tourists. The normal tourists are the ones that spread the word best about the city. And tourism in cities is best advertised by the actual visitors who come and they go home and they talk to their friends, neighbors, and relatives about what a nice city it is and the different pleasures that they had when they were in the city. If the World Cup tourists are replacing the normal tourists, that's not good for long-run tourism as a general principle. But the other thing that's true is that FIFA requires the host city to basically cancel all sales taxes and related taxes on things that are related to the games. If the tourists come to the city and they go to what's called the Fan Fest for the World Cup in the city. The city is required to put on a Fan Fest, and they buy things at the Fan Fest. Say they buy food. That's money being spent on hamburgers and hot dogs that's not being spent at a normal tourist restaurant in the city. A normal tourist restaurant in the city will produce sales taxes and revenue for the host city. But if it's being spent at Fan Fest, there are no taxes allowed. Same thing with ticket prices. They're not allowed to charge a sales tax on ticket prices. So the city can actually be losing money, because if they were playing a normal sport in the summertime and people were buying tickets, there'd be a sales tax on that. That would be revenue to the city. But when they're hosting the World Cup, they're not allowed to have that.
There's a lot of talk about long-term benefits from hosting World Cup games. How sure can we ever be that, in fact, it's worth it?
There's always the hope when you host a sport mega event and you're put, in quotes, onto the world stage to a degree that you hadn't been before. There's always the hope that there'll be more people around the world who now want to visit your city, and there'll be more companies around the world who now want to trade with them for your products. And there'll be more investors around the world who now want to invest in your city. We don't have any evidence that that happens. Those claims have been made frequently. They were made certainly abundantly in the case of London in 2012 when they hosted the Summer Games. But there really isn't any evidence. Good companies don't trade with a city or with a country because they hosted a sport mega event. And they don't invest in a city for that reason. They invest in cities because they have good resources, because they have a good labor force, because they have good fiscal legislation, and because they have good transportation and good location vis-a-vis their markets. And I think that if everything aligns properly, if the city already has the ready-made soccer stadium or stadiums, and they already have the transportation infrastructure and the security infrastructure, and FIFA is giving them some of the more interesting games during the course of the World Cup, then the revenue side could go up a little bit and the cost side could be moderated, and at the end of the day, maybe they generate a small surplus.
Ultimately, surplus or not, the World Cup's reach goes far beyond the spreadsheet. And perhaps few know that better than Canada's Olympic champion turned politician.
I know the power of sport. It has the power to change lives for the better. When we invest in physical activity programs and recreation opportunities for young people, for families, and for older folks alike, we get positive social outcomes. But we also see the economic benefits. We see reductions in healthcare costs. We see less of a strain on our judicial system. We see kids happier, healthier, and more connected, and our communities really coming to life. And that's what I expect to see with FIFA. When it comes to town, we're going to celebrate the beautiful game. We're going to celebrate the opportunity to play host for 6 incredible games here in Toronto and 7 across the country in Vancouver. But I know that in every city across Canada, you're going to be celebrating the great game of soccer.